Hey, what's up you guys? My name is Xander Foster and I don't know how to start this video. I want to start off by saying that I've wanted to share my experience with this topic for a really long time, probably over a year now, and my tentativeness to sharing my experience has come from not seeing anyone talk about this online. And when I talk to people in real life who have been on testosterone, who have had similar experiences, they're sort of hush-hush about it. Like, yeah, that's something I've experienced, but I'm not going to share that with the world. That being said, I think it's most important to share experiences that aren't talked about a lot. That way, if someone is searching for answers or searching for a connection or searching for someone or some words to validate their own experience, they'll have that. I did talk a little bit about this in my 1 year on T video, so if you want to go check out that, you can see sort of where I was at that point with this. But I did want to dedicate an entire video to this topic so that I can just share more and start a conversation with you guys specifically about this topic. So to understand the entire story, I'm going to rewind to before I started testosterone. I was 16, 17, and had been sort of integrated into being socialized male and integrated into male-only spaces. Before I transitioned, I didn't really understand that young men especially, but men in general, censored themselves when there was a woman around or when there was a girl around. I also didn't understand why I was so uncomfortable in male-only spaces until I wasn't uncomfortable in male-only spaces. Before I was on testosterone, I had little to no sympathy for the crude language that I heard from my male peers when they were describing our female peers. I had no sympathy for men objectifying women. I had no sympathy for the way that my male friends talked about my female friends when they weren't around. I started testosterone 3 years ago, and it wasn't until I was about 8 months to a year on testosterone that I really started to understand where those boys were coming from and what led them to choose the language they did, and also what drove them to have the thoughts that they did and why they shared that. Being on testosterone has been one of my biggest blessings, but I think also being socialized female before I was on testosterone has given me this perspective of understanding the other side of the objectification of women in a way that I think a lot of my cis male friends just will never be able to understand. Around 8 months to a year on testosterone, my sex drive skyrocketed, and testosterone was now the driving force of my endocrine system. With that came a lot of acne, a lot of physical changes, and you can watch my transition updates to hear me talk about that stuff. But what also came, and what I didn't really share in those transition updates, was a change in the way that I viewed the objectification of women, and also a change in the way that I viewed women. Before I was on testosterone and I heard men talk about the physicality of a woman before they brought up her maturity or her sense of humor or her personality or her spirituality, I got very uncomfortable. It wasn't clear to me that they weren't making a choice in what they saw first when they saw a woman. After I'd been on testosterone for almost a year, I started to see women as physical beings before I saw them as spiritual or emotional beings, and I had so much shame around that. Growing up being socialized female, all I heard was how that behavior and those thoughts were unacceptable. I was always taught that the way that a man is supposed to view a woman and treat a woman is that she is a complete person, and men should always see the personality of a woman or a person in general before they see them as a physical being. It wasn't that I saw women as objects. It wasn't that I saw them as these sexual beings and nothing else. It was just that the first thing that caught my eye wasn't that a girl was funny anymore. The physicality of that individual. I did hold a lot of shame around it, and I think a lot of that came from not hearing anyone talk about the objectification of women. And even more specifically, I didn't hear any trans men openly talk about objectifying women. And so I thought that on some level I was doing something wrong, or I had skipped some step in my emotional development or maturity that sort of stunted me. And because I was getting all this testosterone, I wasn't able to filter it, and the result of that was the objectification of women. Now that I've sort of settled my dose of testosterone, and I haven't changed it in many months, and there haven't been, any monumental changes in my medical transition, I've come to realize that this objectification of women is, one, in part due to testosterone becoming the driving force of my endocrine system, and two, the socialization of men and how we socialize men and boys. I am very comfortable in male-only spaces. I think part of that is my social transition and becoming more socialized male, and part of that is just my hormones. I now have a greater understanding for both sides of this equation, both men who see the physicality of a woman before they see anything else, and also the women who are offended by men vocalizing those feelings. I don't know if there's much more to share on this experience. Maybe I'll make another video going deeper into this if you guys have any questions about it. I just wanted to come on and share my experience with this because I haven't heard anyone talk about this. And I think that if I had seen a video of a trans guy talk about how testosterone changed him in this way, I would have held a lot less shame because of the way that I viewed women. I still believe that it's never okay to say catcall a woman, but I don't think that male-only spaces, even though they talk a lot about the objectification of women, in my experience, I don't think that male-only spaces are harmful on their own. And in my experience, men talk to each other about their emotions in a very different way than women talk to other women about their emotions. I don't see a problem with that. I think that men and women are different, and our hormones and the way that we are socialized in society make us different, and those differences should not be shamed. I really hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, make sure to give it a like. Leave me a comment, question, or concern down below. Let me know if you've had this experience, a similar experience, or just your thoughts on what I shared today. And if you want to see more from me in the future, then subscribe. Stay sweet.